It is an honor to be here at my last, and perhaps the last, White House Correspondents' Day. You all look great. The end of the Republic has never looked better.
You're looking for a fair process? You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
Why would they fight so hard against us?
Meddle.
River?
People don't like to be meddled with. We tell them what to do, what to think. We're in their homes and in their heads, and we haven't the right.
River. We're not telling people what to think. We're just trying to show them how.
Violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
Excuse me. This is not what I asked for.
Read the sign, sir. We're now only permitted to serve 5% blood with every coffee.
I don't care what the sign says. Just put some more fucking blood in my coffee.
I can't.
getting a loan. A detailed 680-page report revealed that as many as 1.5 million innocent people in China have been murdered for their organs. And I'm not talking about this being done by some underground gangs or criminal networks. I'm talking about official hospitals, including hospitals run by the Chinese military, like this one, the 301 Military Hospital in Beijing. It's a place where a lot of high-ranking Communist Party members get treated. The Chinese military is killing Chinese citizens for their organs on a massive scale. And across China, other hospitals have been following their example.
The Chinese regime not only deprives its people of their basic rights on a daily basis, but literally steals their body parts for a profit.
This undercover reporter captures a Korean patient recovering from a liver transplant at a hospital in Tianjin City, China. The suspicion is there's a roaring trade in organs being harvested by the Chinese regime. The nurse says they did 7 transplants on the previous day. In other countries it can take years to get a suitable organ, but here it's only weeks. So where are they coming from? From prisoners of conscience. Falun Gong is a spiritual movement based on meditation, regarded as an illegal sect by China. In 2005, Annie was sent to this re-education camp in Beijing. She claims healthy Falun Gong practitioners like her were given invasive and unwanted medical tests.
I was severely tortured mentally and physically, but at the same time, they took all these Falun Gong practitioners to the nearest hospital and have a regular body check. They include like chest X-ray, liver test is ultrasound, and a blood test every 3 months.
Another Falun Gong detainee who was released last year also believes organs are being procured from prisoners of conscience.
So in the jail hospital for a few times, they took my hand inside a window, and then they would have a rubber band wrapped around my arm, and then took the needle over there and then take the blood out. And not just me, all the practitioners of Falun Gong. They force you to renounce your beliefs. So if you don't do so, they would beat you up. They choose places like your legs, your arms, and your hip part, but your organ part, they don't touch.
George Soros tells CNBC that a run on treasuries is imminent and that there is nothing the government can do to stop it. He says it is unfortunate that a controlled decline of the dollar was not coordinated better over the years. Today really could have been avoided if not for the Tea Party politicians who demanded fiscal responsibility and a constitutional government. 8:45 a.m. New York Stock Exchange. Upon hearing the statement from China, Dow futures have a sharp reversal and begin to drop. Gold leaps past $3,000 per ounce, up $150 per ounce in the last 26 minutes. CNBC awaits a statement from the White House. 8:50 a.m. Washington, D.C. The president makes an official statement to calm investors' fears. He tells Americans that he has spoken with several G20 leaders. They have assured him that they will continue to increase their purchase of treasuries and believe that a strong U.S. economy is the only thing that will bring back global prosperity. The Federal Reserve announces that it will begin to purchase U.S. treasuries and stocks in order to stabilize the markets. But this only feeds investors' fears of a full-blown treasury run and collapse of the dollar. 6 p.m. Asia. Asian markets begin a massive sell-off. Dollar collapse rumors begin to take hold of the markets. CNBC Asia looks into a possible COMEX default and complete breakdown in the U.S. economy. Gold spikes in Asia, up 17.50 in the first complete hour of trading. Gold is now at 58.03. 7 p.m. Gold and silver bullion dealers across the world have suspended all sales due to no inventory. A comics default is now expected. Several central bank representatives propose a freeze on currency markets and a fixed devaluation of the US dollar in order to calm investors. 7:30 p.m. the United States. The sun sets on America. In the last 12 hours, the world has changed. Americans are glued to their televisions taking a crash course on a debauched currency. Smoke from fires in the cities have put a dark cloud over the nation.
There is a sinister and secretive group of people that run the globe. They control everything from banks to the media. They own the world. They own 99% of the world's wealth, and yet there are less than 1% of the population. They have special family bloodlines to pass on power from generation to generation. They have sacred rites and secret rituals.
Since these people have more money than their families would need for generations, and since they have the power to create money, I don't believe wealth is their end goal.
After you have all the material things that you could possibly want in life, what is left to excite you? And for many people, the answer is power, global power. They became intellectually elite. They began to think that they had a plan that was better than anybody else's plan. They got the idea that freedom is dangerous. If you give people freedom, you know what? They're probably not going to use it wisely like we think they should. We are smarter than they are. And for their own good, we should rule them.
world right now is the people discovering world government, discovering the New World Order. I mean, finally the Associated Press and other major U.S. newspapers and British papers had to admit that global elites are meeting in secret to chart the future of the world. Now, it's not just the enemy of people in other nations. It is the enemy of all free humanity.
Per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. Now that's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use.
When this one began, I thought I already knew it all. All those stories about the world being run by some secret elite group, to me, they were something you could never come close to proving. And then I got a call from Anthony Hilder.
This must be the man I'm looking for right here.
This Paul McCartney-looking guy is a big name in the conspiracy field. He spent 30 years making documentaries about the secret elite. And now, he says, they're ready to make their biggest move yet.
Okay, what do you got for me? Why am I meeting you?
You're meeting me because there's a war against the people intending to kill 95% of the people. That's their plan.
And who's they?
They is the Illuminati. Those who control the managed media, those who control the currency, and the commerce.
Many of the banks created are still the most powerful lobby on Capitol Hill, and they, frankly, own the place.
I'm not a criminal. So how can we just assume that it is human nature that is driving all this pain and misery? What if it wasn't human nature at all, and as a result of something more deliberate? We were taught that capitalism was the cause of a massive rich-poor divide and the reason for poverty, which in turn is the reason for war, crime, and starvation. Others were taught that communism, the system of equal wealth across all people, was really to blame for the mess. But you see, folks, it is none of these things. It is not our nature to fight and be racist. It is not in our nature to rob from others. What you must learn is that it was the criminals all along. Yes, they got power. More power than a criminal should ever have. They rose to the top of media companies that control our news and entertainment. They ascended to the top of the banking system, also to the Oval Office, to Brussels, to the Vatican, to the Crown. They crept in quietly. They became leaders of agricultural companies who have control over our food supply. Also big pharmaceutical companies, the ones we trust to help us when we're sick. Nobody stopped them, and they just recruited more criminals to help them.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
President of the United States in January 1961. He knew about these criminals and wanted them gone. Their intentions for us all, and he wanted to fight them. Sadly, he had no idea how powerful they had become. Reagan also had good intentions for the American people. He knew this criminal mafia controlled almost everything by this stage, including the powerful rogue intelligence agencies. His economic policies were promising, but the criminals needed a weak America to hold on to their power. Reagan was shown with a bullet that a growing U.S. economy and prosperous citizens were not what the criminals wanted.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, the First Lady, and Chelsea Clinton.
have a window that looks directly at the World Trade Center, and I saw this huge explosion. I was with a group of people, and I really couldn't even believe it. And even, I think worse than that, for years I've looked right directly at the building. This was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall.
I've come to believe that their end game is truly ominous, and that they will stop at nothing to continue implementing their plan. As difficult as it may be for Americans to accept, I'm now convinced the agenda of the global elite includes destroying the financial strength and sovereignty of the United States.
Personal understanding of how easy it is for a few to control the many. All you have to do is dictate the norms in society, what is considered right and wrong, moral and immoral, good and bad, sane and insane, possible and impossible. And you build what I call a hassle-free zone. And if you live your life within that zone of perception, belief, and what you say and think, then people will leave you alone because you're normal. Once you step out of that pen and you start to express your uniqueness, what the Illuminati have created is a whole human population of prison warders who are jumping on those that are stepping out of the norm.
One-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Corporations and the United Nations are all attempting to take control. For complete domination, dissent has to be controlled. They'd need to take away our rights, spy on ordinary citizens, and track every aspect of our lives. As the day dawned, I knew that a powerful elite had almost everything set up to rule the world. And I had the frightening realization that Big Brother is not just coming, he's here now. We are already in the Matrix.
But Jake, who is homeless, Jake, you've found yourself some shelter here. Why are you outside during this entire hurricane?
Well, I chose not to go inside yesterday because the Salvation Army and Russian Winds homeless shelter where they were accepting people were caught killing everybody that was in there.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay.
More than 23,000 representatives of private industry are working quietly in collaboration with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. This according to an exclusive report in the Progressive magazine. The business leaders form a group known as InfraGard that receives warnings of terrorist threats directly from the FBI before the public does. In return, they provide information to the government. According to one whistleblower, the FBI has given members of InfraGard permission to shoot to kill in the event of martial law.
For years, there were only 1,700 members after 9/11, and now there are 23,000 members. And the FBI director said, "You're our first line of defense." That's what he told these business people. You know, this is a secretive organization. They're not supposed to talk to the press. You need to get vetted by the FBI before you can join it. They get almost daily information that the public doesn't get. And then they have these extraordinary, really astonishing powers being vested in them by FBI and Homeland Security. Shoot to kill powers. I mean, this is scary stuff.
Until about 2 years ago, up until about 2 years ago, I kept saying there's a loose-knit network operating in this country involving drugs, pedophilia, pornography, prostitution, corruption, etc., etc. 2 years ago, from my research, I'm convinced it's much more serious than that. It's more than a loose-knit network. It is a conspiracy. And you know how the news media comes after us when we use the word C, conspiracy, that C word. Well, they can come after me all they like, because I guarantee you right here and now, we do have a conspiracy.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
I looked at the kind of world the controlling elite have already given us, and I had to ask, what kind of world would we be living in if they had absolute and complete domination over everyone, everywhere? In this new world order of theirs, a tiny number of people would exercise total control over the lives of everyone through a system of intrusive surveillance, violent suppression of dissent, and debt slavery. Imagine tiny islands of opulence surrounded by a sea of misery, where the mission of the military is to protect the haves from the have-nots. These would-be controllers, through the U.S. Space Command, have outlined a plan called full-spectrum dominance. Sophisticated satellite surveillance, as well as directed energy and laser weapons, which are already developed, have the ability to target dissenters anywhere on Earth. I believe they are also trying to ensure they can deal effectively with any resistance. FEMA containment camps and railroad cars with shackles have been recently constructed or refurbished all over the United States for use in what officials call times of pandemic or civil unrest.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis? Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, why is America
not the greatest country in the world, Professor? That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime, column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always?
Hey.
And with a straight face, you're gonna tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
What we discovered was that the Stasi in East Germany was probably the closest we have come to the totalitarian police state evoked by George Orwell in his book 1984.
It's actually a totalitarian process that's been used down through history. I mean, that's what totalitarian dictators, states, that's what they want to do. They want to know everything about the population so they can control it. That was the idea behind the Soviet Union, the East German Stasi, that was their idea, and the Gestapo and the SS, and down through history, many others.
Well, it was established back in 1996 in our Cleveland office. And initially, it was established to address issues relating to cybercrime and to establish a network of companies who were concerned about cyber issues. And of course, since then, it has grown.
And Sarah, so what your report is saying here is you had an ex-Intel contractor suing Comey, saying that the FBI, on a mass scale, covered up mass civil liberties violations against Americans, and he has evidence. Isn't that a little bit bigger than Russia collusion with no evidence, as I just proved up to this point?
With the technology that he had, with the NSA, over 20 million Americans, 600 million documents. He said if you stack those up, that's 30 miles high. 30 miles high, but over 20 million Americans. And I said, well, what was it you were unmasking? He said everything from their bank accounts, their homes, their records, phone conversations, emails. He was able to take down every single firewall. And it was so distressing because, you know, this is what he was directed to do. And when he tried to do the right thing And he did, in his opinion, the right thing and got the immunity agreement from the FBI. The FBI decided to not move forward.
What this story pulls back the curtain on is a set of tools that I truly did not know were available to the most powerful men in this country when they are bent on stopping allegations against them.
I'm going to finish the same way I started. This is an agreement between the American people and its government. We are going to, we the American people, give certain powers to government to keep us safe. And when those powers are misused, and the motive is not criminal investigations or national security, then I'll bet you my fellow citizens are rethinking their side of the equation. Because that U.S. citizen could be them next time. It could be you. It could be me. It could be anyone until we start seriously investigating and prosecuting what Congress thought was serious enough to attach a 10-year felony to.
Seems like that would
that's
precipitate
my case.
A constitutional crisis. They're not. You're a member of Congress elected. These are bureaucrats unelected. Right. You serve in an oversight role over them. If they're spying on you, then, I mean, the whole system falls apart or is falling apart.
How about if they're spying on a presidential candidate or a president after he's been elected? Those kind of things, it turns out, were going on.
Right. Now, what does that mean, though, by spying? Would that be monitoring your email, phone calls, bugging your office?
And
what did they say?
All of the above. And I'm told by one of our folks that they know everybody that walks through your office door before they get to the door. So, you know.
They being whom?
That would be the U.S., well, FBI intelligence.
Specifically the Jones case, which is a Supreme Court ruling where they ruled 9-0 that a GPS device placed on a vehicle for an extended period of time was an unreasonable search. Geolocation is broadly defined as using a GPS device or triangulation so that you can tell the specific whereabouts of where a particular phone is.
That's a question I'd have to get back to you on. I had not thought about that.
We submitted in advance our questions that we were going to ask here today, in part so I could have a candid dialogue with you. We were very good at providing the questions that I was going to ask. No, with all due respect, sir, you're the director of the FBI. You've been there for 12 years. Then the standard for attaching tracking devices to cars under Jones.
I have to get back to you on that.
Can you tell me some basics? Can you tell me how many agents, investigators you've assigned to the case?
May be able to do that, but I'd have to get back to you.
Can you tell me who the lead investigator is?
Off the top of my head, no.
This is the most important issue in front of the country the last 6 weeks. You don't know who's heading up the case? Who the lead investigator is?
At this juncture, no, I do not know who the...
Saying why were people targeted before the investigation started? The terms Tea Party, Patriot, and 9/12 were used to identify groups and put them on a list. Did the FBI contact any of these same victims? Were they contacted by the FBI prior to the investigation when these same groups were applying for tax-exempt status? Did the FBI pay some of these individuals a visit?
I do not know.
Pardon?
I do not know.
You don't know?
I do not know.
Some of them testified that they were paid a visit by the FBI. Specifically, Catherine Engelbrecht in Texas said she was visited by the FBI. She was head of True the Vote.
Not being familiar with it, I can't.
In your time as an investigator, is that how you would do interviews with the boss sitting next to the person you're trying to get information from?
Well, again,
Is it appropriate for Holly, the Inspector General came out in a transcribed interview that our staff has done, the Oversight Committee staff has done, is it appropriate to have her collect the data and give it to the Inspector General? Is it appropriate when the Inspector General is doing his investigation, doing his audit, to give information to the very people he's investigating in the course of the investigation and not share that same information with the Oversight Committee?
American Civil Liberties Union is filing coordinated Freedom of Information Act requests involving about 30 ACLU local offices where we're trying to get information about what type of information the FBI is collecting through this new type of investigation they claim to be authorized to conduct.
Well, here's where things start to take a new turn. When the full picture comes to be known, it will forever be regarded as the greatest story ever told.
And why are you keeping information from Congress?
Congressman, I am not keeping any information from Congress that it's appropriate.
In a few minutes, Mr. Rosenstein, I think the House of Representatives is going to say something different.
I don't agree with you, Congressman. I don't believe that's what they're going to say, and if they do, they'll be mistaken.
I disagree, but I think in a few minutes the House of Representatives is going to go on record saying you haven't complied with requests from a separate and equal branch of government, that you haven't complied with subpoenas, and you got 7 days to get your act together. I think that's what's going to happen in a few. And that's not Jim Jordan. I think that's a majority of the House of Representatives. In just a few minutes, I think that's going to happen. And I want to know why you won't give us what we've asked for.
The information age was coming to change history forever. In the right hands, it will be enough information to expose the entire sinister criminal plot to rob us blind and wipe us out. Hold that thought. Now I need to explain the plan. The good guys were devising a plan to reclaim the world from the cabal and return it to the people. It would involve alliances with multiple countries, since the criminals had global rat lines, trade, and other infrastructure in place that would need their cooperation. It came down to two choices for America: launch a military coup to seize the government from whichever cabal puppet was in the White House at the time, or win legitimately, take control of the NSA, expose the criminals for what they are, and arrest them all.